welcome to our Peer Connect session today on sustainability and peer support. Can you tell us a little bit about where you work and what you do?
Thank you very much for having me. So my name's Darren. I'm the operations manager for Penumbra based in Dundee. And today I'm just going to be here to talk about our 24 hour, 7 days a week service that runs in Dundee called Hope Point. It's a drop-in service for people experiencing emotional distress and really been keen to keep that as broad as possible. The part of the role that's probably relevant to this most than ever is that the staffing team of practitioners are all employed in peer roles. And
Hmm.
that's been something that's been fed back as really positive for the service.
How did Hope Point come about? It's a peer service.
Lived experiences really came from the heart of it. So initially, Dundee City had been interested in a community wellbeing centre for people in emotional distress to attend. And this came about from various different things. There was the Fighting for Fairness report in 2018 and the Strang report in 2020 that sort of talked about trust and respect and building in these sort of networks where people feel listened to and able to access support in mental health crisis, as it were.
Yeah,
People understand crisis resolution home treatment teams as being able to respond to people who are in acute emotional distress. People see that there are, long-standing mental health conditions where people might need help with that if there's an escalation in an episode for them. There was noted gap that then people who are in emotional distress who maybe aren't linked up with their mental health services already may not have that support in place. So ensuring that the barriers were as minimal as possible to ensure that there was support available for everybody in Dundee to access as easily as possible. So long story short, there is a panel of discussion that started all the way back in 2018
yeah.
until in 2023 we launched in the 31st of July and we've been open 24/7 to offer wellbeing support to people in and around Dundee ever since.
Brilliant. So how many years have you been in practice? Have you been able to, have you been offering a service?
So we've recently just published a 2-year report.
Brilliant.
So it's been nice to see sort of the figures that have came from that over that time. We've supported, and this is where I try and remember it off the top of my head, 2061, was it? People in 2 years, which is no small feat, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of that has to do with the open and accessible nature of Hope Point. It's
Yeah.
very central to Dundee City Centre, and it's somewhere that people can go in order to get support for their mental health or if they're in emotional distress. Regardless, there's no wait list, and there's loads of options that are open
Yeah.
to people. People can phone, they can text, whatever suits their needs best.
Yeah, so that's really good. You've really helped set a context there, and you've been operating for for just over 2 years now. We're really interested in how you made that work. What are some of the key things that have helped Hope Point develop it as it has been and to do the good work that it is doing?
Just, I'm thinking in terms of our relationship with the Health and Social Care Partnership, so that's who it's funded through. The Dundee Health and Social Care Partnership have funded it, and we've been really lucky that we've been able to be 24 hours in the sense that that's what was asked of us, and that's what we've been able to allocate. So again, it's been building in processes as we go. So for instance, we started off with a team structure that looks very different to what it is now. We started off with 4 practitioners and 12 workers, I think. Whereas now, and this is where I get the numbers slightly askew, everyone is in practitioner posts because they were effectively doing the same jobs. The initial theory was you would have a practitioner on every shift that was able to decide and make those decisions about, what the support is going to look like for someone who comes in. But realistically, with the service, it made sense for there to be all in practitioner posts to recognize the high level of support that they're actually delivering at that stage. Um, there's all sorts of things. So even before we launched, we spent a long time going out there and really getting to know the city, going to know all of the support networks that are out there and all of the resources that exist in the third sector, in the statutory sector, all sorts. Dundee's a great city in the sense that it has so much there available for people. But I think it can be challenging as a Joe Blogs to access those. It's not easy to know which service is available to you. And I think it's really good to have a team that's aware of their local community.
Yeah.
So that really helped in part. I think the other bit is there's lots of pathway aspects with Hope Point as well. So we've worked with colleagues from the police, we've worked with colleagues from the Scottish Ambulance Service and from the Crisis Resolution Home Treatment Team as well to ensure there's distinct pathways in place for people. Again, it was thinking about these sorts of elements where if someone comes in on their own volition versus if they come in escorted by the police, that's going to feel very different in terms of support.
Yeah.
So we had to agree a pathway with the police where it was sort of explaining the process of what we can do for them, how do they get themselves home safe, and is there any sort of ongoing concerns that the police may have if they are dropping someone on, rather than saying, here's where you're going to get support, and then just not really leaving any other information or
Yeah.
context there. So I think developing those relationships over the 2 years has been really important and has been a great asset here in Dundee.
It sounds like you've had to really invest in building these relationships and connections because sometimes we think, oh, we just need to think about internally and the relationships that we build with ourselves and the relationships we build with people who come to access our support. But
Yeah.
really, it sounds like you've really had to really build these relationships within your local community, find out what's going on there, and partner and think about your relationship with your partners as well, so that it benefits everybody. I was thinking about that point you made as well about as you've developed as a service has developed, it is developing in itself. It becomes responsive
Mhm.
to what the needs are of the service as well. You adapted the peer roles. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about how you support and enable your peer practitioners
Yeah,
to feel
absolutely.
confident and capable in their role.
Of course, of course. So Hope Point is a contract that was Hope Point is provided by Penumbra, and Penumbra does have quite a lot of peer support training and puts them on locally. We've connected in with partners in DVV as well for the sort of peer model as well to
Yeah,
ensure that we're really at the heart of that. But I think a big part of it is ensuring that the peers are able to share their story without feeling like it's something that they have to do in every support, and it's making sure that we're clear on what that looks like as a peer worker, that every conversation doesn't have to be involving your story. It can just be as simple as saying, I've been there, and just leading from there, so people know that you're not just reading from a textbook, you're coming from a place where you yourself have gone through some difficult times and are able to relate to them on more of a personal aspect there. And I think you can see people's barriers immediately come down. There's certainly been huge, huge positive feedback regarding the team at Hope Point for their peer roles.
yeah,
So it's really about ensuring that we listen to the needs of the team. One of the things that we established early on was the shift pattern. So it being a difficult job and staffing a 24/7 service, there was a couple of different options that we could do in order to achieve that model. And early on, the staff team had said that they'd like to do three 12-hour shifts just because that gives them a bit of their life back,
yeah,
They come to work 3 times a week, and then that's for them to then just continue with their lives and get the downtime outside of work, and that's something that's really important. I think in this role, it's really easy to get really invested into people's stories and into people's own recovery experiences. But we're really lucky that we've got such a supportive and incredible team. A lot of them have their own lived experience in the sense that they'll relate to things. So whenever people come through from the office after doing what we'd call a consultation, the first question is, how is that? How are you feeling after that? And I think that's really culture that we've managed to embed here. We're fortunate that we're able to be here in the same location, I suppose,
yeah,
and able to sort of share that experience together. But the team's been really good about making sure they're opening up about things, while not feeling too much, and not going overboard with it, I suppose, being able to share what's appropriate to them,
yeah.
but not feel the need to, I guess, trauma dump all the time as well.
Yeah, I remember when we've talked in the past, and talking to other peer practitioners, and this it was one thing they talked a lot about was really the support that people are encouraged to give each other as a team. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about how you set that culture where where the team is incredibly supportive? What is it
Mhm.
that makes that happen?
Yeah, I think, there's been a lot of different changes over the years in terms of structure, but we've always had, management presence has changed in the sense that it looks very different now. We started off with three managers, um, and operationally it is just myself now. But I suppose for me, that's making sure that we're really keen to not lose touch with people. I think support and supervision, as much as I can say it, is really key. And I think
Yeah,
oftentimes it's the first thing to go when we get busy. But I think that's something that really needs to be prioritized in order to make sure people are developing well, even if it's a half an hour chat where they say, well, I'm fine, I've had no issues. I'd rather know that than have
yeah,
somebody have no opportunity to bring it up. It's really about being as open as possible as a manager for me, I feel, because again, issues may be cropping up day to day that they're not necessarily able to talk to me about because day to them is 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. I'm not necessarily going to see them during that time. So ensuring that they've got an open line of communication with me, knowing that it's okay to just pick my brains about little things, even if that's all they needed. But
yeah,
also, being able to be there for the bigger things too. I think it's about trusting in your colleagues to make the right decisions for themselves. So, for instance, yesterday we had a situation where someone came into the centre who previously had been a bit difficult to manage or had been a bit difficult in terms of their distress. And we'd maybe advised that perhaps having two people in would be a good idea. However, there was another worker from a different service that was in there, and I'd said to my colleague, whatever you feel comfortable with, if you think that this still needs one more of our staff team, absolutely fine. I'll trust your judgment on that. And I think it's that sort of equality and approach. I think is about making sure that you're giving people the right opportunity to do things and then go into that role confident that you've made the right choice because she came
yeah.
in saying, I'm actually really glad I took the other person along with me because in fact, that person was not a support worker. That was someone saying that they were a support worker. So it was a very different angle there.
Lovely.
Um, I think that's it. You've
Yeah,
really got to listen to your team and to ensure that you know that they're coming from a place where they need to do what's comfortable for them.
yeah,
Um, I suppose the other thing that's been really positive for us is we have had team leader roles come up in Penumbra recently, and that's been a big shake-up. And we were really lucky because our team here is so passionate. We had quite a few of them go for the position,
yeah.
and that means that someone who was previously in a peer role is then able to be a part of the team and lead it. And I think that's massive. I think that gives them sort of the buy-in that they need in order to develop the service for what it should be.
That sounds amazing. But I noticed you used the word lucky as well. I think it's more than luck. You've intentionally created the circumstance or the
Hmm.
environment where peers practitioners feel that they have something to offer and to feel that there are opportunities that are open to them and they feel skilled enough and confident to be able to step up into that.
Yeah.
So it says really something about the culture that you're creating within the team and the organisation. Because one of the
Mhm.
other things I've heard peer practitioners talk about as well is how good it is to be to also to check in with their colleagues that they're on shift with as well around there's a support and supervision that you've spoken of and that you provide and how people can check in with you, but also they're checking in with each other as well and
Mhm.
looking out for each other.
Yeah, and that's it. I think sometimes we can get bogged down in the day to day. I think oftentimes in peer roles, we're really good when we have people who are coming in to see us,
Yeah,
that are, receiving support from us. But then that sort of, I guess, approach, we sometimes forget about it within our own teams as well. And that can be
yeah,
tricky to manage. I mean, that does come up occasionally, obviously. But one of the times I'm thinking of is directly after I had a supervision with someone and mentioned that they were having a bit of a interpersonal spat. It wasn't anything massive. It was a case of didn't like how they were being spoken to, and they thought it wasn't a nice, I guess, framing that they were doing, and they were playing it off as being cheeky and just a wee bit of a banter, but they didn't feel that it was the right way. And I'm like, I think it's better you address that sooner rather than later, because then you both know that you're on an even playing field. And
yeah.
from what I knew, they were both two people that really got on well anyway. I knew that they worked together well. I knew that they would both take it as intended, I suppose. And I didn't want to meddle with that. I wanted that to be their conversation. So it's about knowing when to take yourself away from that situation, but also to say if you feel uncomfortable with it, more than happy to come with you. But I think
Yeah.
you've got a really strong relationship and connection that you can use to make that conversation work.
Right. Because that sounds like you're asking people to model what they're doing in practice in their
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
relationships as well. How do you empower? How do people feel empowered to do things for themselves? That mutuality part of we are equals here. Let's have a conversation about how do we make
And
this relationship work for us
yeah,
both.
and that's the beauty of the peer model because everyone comes from such different backgrounds, everyone's got
Yeah.
different experiences, and that challenges people's preconceived notions, I suppose, of what it is to be a peer worker, and that's really brilliant because then you support people better and challenge your own biases, I think.
Brilliant. Like we've talked about all this positive stuff and how it's
It's
so
feeling a bit gushy,
fantastic,
isn't it? Yeah.
and it sounds like it's so easy. But it's the real world, and there are real life challenges that
Yeah.
come, with eh, with eh, with anything, and peer support's no different. I wonder if you could tell us maybe give us a little bit of an insight to maybe a challenge you've had in at Hope Point and how you've maybe dealt with that.
Mhm. I think what we talked about, the relational aspect is massive. Obviously, people initially think about their work with the people that come into the building and don't necessarily appreciate that the people that they're working with aren't so different. And that can sometimes be challenging because people just feel like they need to let their guard down and just rant about everything and be able to be like, oh my God, I can't believe how much paperwork I've got to do. So I suppose that's part of it. And I think what exacerbates it, as much as it was chosen by the staff team, the 12-hour shifts can be challenging to manage, especially if you're going on a string of night shifts. So we do a 2 weeks days, 2 weeks nights kind of pattern. And you do occasionally see people, I suppose, oversharing things at that point, or maybe being a bit more tense and a bit more raw emotionally, because again, you're forcing your body to do something it probably doesn't want to do. You're
Yeah,
up late hours of the night, because that's what your role is effectively. And so I found that a lot of those difficult conversations have happened in between the staff team, when they've got more time rather than the support, because again, as much as we are utilized during the night, there will be periods of downtime. I think tend to find 4 and 5 a.m. and I've done them before. Have been in times where you know no one's going to come in, nothing's going to happen. That doesn't say it never happens, but ordinarily that's the time where you'll either feel a bit emotionally raw or you'll talk about something and just take something the wrong way. Um, and that's challenging in the sense that it's still a role that we have to do, but it's trying to do it in a way that is healthy, balanced for people.
yeah,
And again, we have to make sure that the night shifts are stuck together. So if you're doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night shift, we're not splitting you up. We can't put
yeah,
you into any other sort of pattern. Day shift has a bit more flexibility. If you're in the, I guess,
yeah,
that pattern, it's not quite so bad to miss days in between. But that can be really challenging for people, especially given that it's such difficult topics you're going through, and then not having the ability to speak to someone more directly, senior,
yeah,
at that time, and having to be your own guard in that sense, and making sure that you're looking after your own well-being.
yeah,
That can be really challenging, and I suppose that's ensuring that people do get touch based with, and ensuring that they have an open line of communication as much as they can.
yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah,
suppose it's
it's
like
it's an
that.
ongoing challenge.
Yeah, I suppose it's like that. How do we encourage people to take responsibility for their own well-being at work, but at the same time provide support and space for that to happen? But it really
Yeah.
sounds like you are responding
Mhm.
and adapting to people, and you're keeping these values that are core to peer
Yeah.
support
Yeah.
as part of how you provide the service. We're coming to the end of our conversation, Darren. Um, I'm really intrigued. What are your hopes for the future of peer supports and Hope Point, and across Scotland? If you had something you wanted to share with us today, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, in Hope Point, we're obviously based in one building, and I'm really interested in exploring avenues outside of that. So, capturing people from different backgrounds, maybe either more deprived backgrounds or from different ethnic backgrounds, ensuring that we've just opened the parity of approach, and that's in making sure that we employ people in roles like that as well as going out to, say, International Women's Centre in Dundee's one place where we'd love to do sort of a drop-in style, just to sort of capture a different populace. In terms of more broadly in Scotland, I mean, I think the model speaks for itself in terms of what people get out of it and the support they feel they receive from it. I think statutory services are one of the places where I think peer roles could really benefit. I mean, we're very lucky being in the third sector in a lot of ways because we don't have to bend our will, I suppose, as much, whereas sometimes you do have to in these statutory roles. And I think if people have people in peer roles in that sense, they're maybe able to convey that in a way that's sensitive to people who maybe go through that difficult time. I really think it's a model that works for everyone. It not only encourages people with recovery, but it also shows people there's hope beyond what they're going through. They have the ability to then reach out and say, you did this role, even though you went through some really difficult times. I maybe would be able to do that someday. And I think that's got a really powerful connection with
Yeah.
people.